All right. So you should be able to see our demo.lead portal testing and internal system here. Many of you have seen this on the demos that we went through. So we're going to be going and using this as well as the mortgage lead type as the walkthrough today. But as you guys know, because the process is the same for all the lead types in the system, the exact same logic will apply no matter what your lead type is. So the first thing that we want to address when we have a new lead system are the lead types. So you'll see a bunch that we have set up over here. These lead types are very important because they define the fields and formats that your system will accept for a given lead type. And so all of your posts into the system, be them from internal or third party campaigns, are going to be based off this lead type. And then also any custom deliveries to post the lead into your client's CRM or lead management system is done via these specs here. So uh, it's very important to get these correct. And so when we bring up the link here, excuse me, you can see the posting specs and link for the mortgage lead type. And this will define the required and optional fields and then also formats, as well as the response. And so every lead that is submitted into the system receives a matched, unmatched, or aired response. And so, regardless of whether we're talking about a direct post into the system or a ping post, we use this response to close the loop in that communication or that lead flow. I'll also point out that you can enable a full response if you're selling to the direct service providers, and then that will return the dynamic matching partner information so you could parse that onto your confirmation page. So again, these settings lead types are going to be for the direct posting specs. And then if we're looking at ping post, we're going to go to the API section to take a look at those instructions. So in API settings, you'll see ping post lead. When you click on that, that will generate specific posting specs or any lead type that is set up in ping post. So look here in the mortgage lead type, you'll see that same URL, although with the addition of the ping specifications. And that basically gives them an additional column, which is ping required, so that those lead sellers know what fields need to be pinged in and what fields then need to be posted into your lead system per lead type. So when we're dealing with third-party affiliates, there's going to be three things that you need to provide them in a ping post setting, and two things in a if they're doing a static post. So if we are looking at ping post, they will need this posting instruction as well as an API key, and we'll take a look at where to grab that next. And then the other thing that they're going to need is a source, an SRC value. And this is an important variable because this is that main tracking variable that lets you know where that lead came from, and then it also tells the system what actions to take when a lead comes in from a given source. So that's actually going to bring us to then tracking those incoming leads. That is done in a vendor source organization. So a vendor is typically a third-party affiliate that you work with. It might be a bulk emailer. It might be a SEO company that you work with. It might be another boberdoo client that's a lead seller. You can create permissions or unique permissions for each affiliate and provide them with logins so that they can view the leads that were sent through their sources. When we click into an affiliate, we see right off the bat their affiliate key. So this is that unique string that was identified in the previous page that is required for them to open up the ping post process into your system. So this key is just that. It's a key to open the door to your lead system so that it can push information to it and get a response. And again, you can customize the permissions on each vendor for both reports and pages for their login. So then the next level of organization that we come to is the source setting. Now, source, as I mentioned, tells you where the lead came from, and it tells the system what actions to take. So if you're running internal campaigns like paid search campaigns on Google, for example, or Bing, Yahoo, internal organic traffic would probably have their own source. And then any third-party um, affiliates that you want to set up. Now you can set them up either on a static basis, meaning that when they post leads into your system, you're going to pay them X number per lead, so $5 per lead. Or they might be a dynamic setup, in which case they're going to ping into you partial information about the lead and capture your dynamic bid. And so each of those have custom settings. So we're going to go into one of the sources here, the static source, to look into some of those options. So first off, there are a lot of different switches here. These allow you to handle um, how that lead is, or the lead is handled in the system. So one, especially for the purposes of this video, that link out will define each of these switches. So it is a good reference for you. If you're not sure if you should use a switch or not, you can either click on there, you can also jump on our chat, or even open a ticket to ask before you do implement those settings, and we'll make sure to advise. So when we're looking at these settings, I'm going to cover some of the more commonly used one. So first off, you have a vendor, and you can assign those vendors to a specific, this source to a specific vendor. You have manual review check. So if this is enabled, every lead that comes into your system would then be held for manual review by you internally. So if you are doing ping posts, you would never want this set, because that will then prohibit the dynamic bid from being returned. Next, we have the lead QC. So this is an optional add-on. It's defaulted to no for all new sources, and you have to select yes here in order to incur any additional costs. It's 20 cents per lead, and it will score the lead off the data points provided and hold those that fail for manual review. Then you have your lead costs. So in this case, this is a static lead seller posting in at $10 per lead. So let's make sure this is, let's say they're posting in at $5 per lead. And then we have the number of buyers per lead. So you can sell leads exclusively or non-exclusively through the same lead type. And you would just put the maximum number of buyers per lead here. And then there's overrides in the filter sets per partner, so that you can make sure that exclusive buyers are the only ones to receive that lead. And then these other settings here are primarily used on unique situations with lead sellers. And one of those is ping posts. So we're going to X out of here and then go into the dynamic source for this lead type. And so these switches are the same. One thing, because it's dynamic, you'll notice that the lead cost is 0. That is because we are not saying how much we're going to pay them, but it's going to be calculated off of your best bid of your buyers less your profit margin. So that is going to bring us to a couple of settings with regards to ping post. So first we have delivery timeouts on both the ping and the post. That is going to be given to you by your lead seller. So when you put this in here, it allows you to automatically make sure you return a bid back to that lead seller in their maximum amount of time. So if you have a buyer that has not replied to your ping after 30 seconds, we cut them off. Just take your best bid at the time and reply back. So the reason that that's important is because it ensures that you're always returning a bid back to the lead seller, which is something that they keep tabs on to keep their ping tree optimized. And it also makes sure that you're competitive in those pings. And that's going to bring us to the return best price parameter. So when we select yes, as we did here, that tells the system that is not a direct post, but instead the lead seller is going to ping that partial information into us, and the system should calculate a bid and return it back. So there's a couple of additional switches here. We have the maximum best price offer limit. This is your protective ceiling. So if I knew that I never wanted to return more than a $20 bid to this source, I could put that in here, and no matter what the calculation was, it would cap out at $20. There is also a vendor premium. This would sit at the end of the profit margin calculation. So if you had a really good lead seller and you wanted to give them an extra $1 per lead, you could put that here rather than having to create unique filter sets for each one of those partners for each lead buyer. So it's really an efficiency. I would recommend starting at 0 in here and only implementing this if you wanted to create those exceptions on a vendor by vendor basis. The other thing that I'll point out is the send back lead. Many of our clients will use this so that you can automatically have a lead or automatically contact the vendor via email. We can build posts into their system to let them know of a refund request or declined lead. So once we've set up the lead type and those incoming sources, that defines what is coming into the system and where it's coming from. So then we're going to jump over to the other side of the coin here into the buyer section to take a look at a couple of lead buyers. So first off, you'll see we have all of our lead buyers in here. You can create custom labels in the settings tab for different partners. So if you're running multiple lead types, you can color code them to keep them organized in your lead system. So the two that we'll be working off of here is Acme and XYZ. First, we'll take a look at XYZ. Now, there are three things that a lead buyer needs in order to receive a lead. The first thing that they need is an active account. The second thing that they need is available funds. And the third thing that they need is a matching filter set. So in the account information tab is where you would configure the permissions for this buyer. So you have your account status, which we have as active here, satisfying the first condition. And then you can also customize other permissions, most notably refund requests and how they're handled, whether they can add funds from their login, and whether they can change their own status. So then the second thing that they need is, in order to receive a lead, is available funds. So that can be done either from a positive standpoint, positive balance, or a negative. We can see here that this one's working off of a negative balance. You can do manual account operations right here. So if they drop off $500 in cash, you can go and put this into their balance right away. But many of our clients will use the invoicing and billing tab. So this is where you can do things like give them credit limits, allowing them to run negative. And also enable automated rebilling options with authorize.net. And again, that is a client-by-client setting. So you can offer some clients a subscription base and do recurring charges. You can have others do a trigger-based auto rebill, and still others on a Monday rebill. And then we also have an invoice manager. So if you are doing traditional weekly and monthly invoices, you can automate that process through that tab as well. And that is going to bring us to the third, final, and most important thing in order to receive a lead, and that is a matching filter set. And so if we look here, we see that there is a mortgage lead filter set already set up. And up at the top here would be all of your different lead types so that you can easily add additional filter sets right from this page. If we go into the mortgage lead type, very similar to the source settings with the definitions, there are lead filter set definitions. So if you're not sure what they are, just link out to that page and we define each of those switches for you. So we'll go through these here just to dig into those options. First off is the filter set name. So first piece of unsolicited advice, the naming convention from your filter sets is important. If you can keep a consistent naming convention throughout your filter sets, it's going to make your lives a lot easier down the road when you have a lot of these filter sets set up. So we see here that this is a filter set for Illinois refi leads. So basically, in order to sell a lead to this static buyer at $20, all of the parameters below must be met. So first we have our profit margin calculation. This is fixed at $3. So how this would read is if a lead seller were to ping into the system, and this is one of the matching filter sets, we would take $20 less the $3 margin and return $17 back to the lead seller as your represented bid. If you're the high bid in that ping tree, you would get the full lead details posted to you. We would in turn deliver the lead to this buyer via whatever delivery method that we set up. And once we get that success response that marks the lead as sold, we send the matched response back to the seller, thus locking in your $3 margin. So then we have accepted lead sources and which sources can send leads to this buyer at this price. And then we have that delivery option that I had mentioned. So you can deliver leads via email, Excel, PDF, do plain text, we can do SMS messaging as an optional add-on. And then you'll see these specials down here at the bottom, like test and no delivery. So these represent custom deliveries to post the lead into your client CRM or lead management system. So there is a delivery wizard. We build probably 90% of our clients' custom deliveries for them. So it is something we have a lot of experience at, and at the end of the day is oftentimes more efficient. But I know I've talked to some of you guys about doing it yourself. We can do training, and then we have add new as a copy. So if you're running a lot of accounts, bringing on a lot of new buyers with the same CRM like Velocify, for example, you can add new as a copy, change the client ID, and you're off and running. We then have priority, so leads can be distributed in ping post or in regular lead distribution based on priority or best price. So clients on the same priority just go into a round robin, but you can raise or lower the priority accordingly. And in the case of best price parameter, that priority setting is then used only when they're returning the same bids. We then have our exclusivity. So if no matter what your maximum number of buyers per lead is, you can set exclusive, and then that would prevent the lead from being sold to any other buyer if it was sold to this one. And then you can also set an exclusivity period to open up the lead for reprocessing at a later date. You then have your caps, daily, weekly, and monthly, and their lead delivery schedule. So this is time of day, day of week, and then also the associated price, so that if you did have, for example, selling weekend leads at a discounted rate, you could do that right in here. So then we have our geographic segmentation. So in this setup, it was a refi buyer getting all Illinois leads, but you can drill down to the zip code level, it's inclusive or exclusive, and we have lookups by distance and county. And then would be any custom fields regarding your lead type that were defined as filterable when we're building out that vertical. So in the case of mortgage, loan value, LTV, credit, refi versus purchase, for example, are all fields that are commonly filtered on. So in this case, the loan value must be 100K plus. It must have an LTV of less 90% or less, and then it has to be a refi lead, not a purchase. So the idea is that when a lead comes in, if the answers provided by the lead meet the conditions of this filter set, then that lead can be routed to the buyer. So I'm going to go back to the buyer section and take a look at the other one, which is Acme. Now they're set up the same way, active account, available funds, and then the third thing being a matching filter set. The difference here is that this is a dynamic lead buyer, so they would be, there would be some slight differences here. So for these buyers, they are ones that you are going to ping out to them, capture their dynamic bid, and then compare that to any of the static buyers that you have in your system. So in those cases, the lead price would be 0. And instead of using a fixed profit margin, we can use a variable one so that we can take out different profits depending on the lead that they return, the price that they return back to you. And then the other thing that would have to be different is that instead of delivering the lead by email, we would have to build one of those custom deliveries to ping out to their system and capture their bid. The other difference would be that unless that lead buyer were to put conditions on your on what pings they want to receive, you would provide because you haven't agreed to a specific price or a minimum set of qualifications. So you can always ping them and just find out what their bid is. And then that gets factored into any of the other buyers that you have set up. So that at the end of the day is setting up both your incoming sources and incoming leads. So you have for incoming leads, you have your lead type, vendors, and sources. And then for the buyers, you have an active account, available balance, and matching filter sets. So all of that comes together in the leads tab. So we can see a couple of leads that were processed here this morning for purposes of this demo here. So all of these columns in the middle can be customized by you through the priority configuration. You can reorder them and uncheck them if they're not important. You can drill down by date range, and then you can filter by any of the variables in the lead type. So this is going to help you drill down by posts, pings, or both pings and posts. By default, we only show posts so as not to bombard your system with ping-only data. And then you can still drill down by sources, lead buyers, number of times the lead was sold, and any of the variables on the lead type itself. So once you filter on those leads, you can export them for further offline analysis. Most of the columns here that we'll focus on are the tools and then the buyers. So the buyers is what's most important because this tells you exactly what happened to the lead. So in this case, we see an unmatched status. So that lead was posted in from Google, but there were no available buyers for that lead. So it shows up in this unmatched status versus this lead, which we see is in a manual review format. So this then has to have some action by your team in order to be processed. And then this one we see was sold to Coyote, in this case for $0. And that was a mistake by me when I put in the wrong filter set. So if we look at the unmatched, we come over to these tools here. So we have the lead ID. This will show all of the lead details provided. And then we have process and reprocessing options. So you can get lists of available buyers that could purchase a lead. We don't have anybody set up to buy that lead, but if they did, they would appear right here. There is a do not call list. So if you do have somebody that is a pain, you can add them to the do not call list, prevent that lead from being routed to your other buyers. And then we have our lead log that we'll cover here in a second. This is very important, especially when it comes to ping post. This will spell out the details of every lead. So any ping responses you get from buyers, the profit margin calculation, and then ultimate success or fail responses of those buyers. So we look at this middle icon here, the lead QC. The reason that this lead was placed into manual review is because lead QC failed. So this is that optional add-on that will score the lead off the data points provided. And so you can see here that we do several checks, and then it's all dependent on what's provided by the lead. So we do a reverse phone lookup. We see the area code exists and matches to boberdoo. We do a reverse IP lookup. We do a reverse address. And so this does not recognize my main street as address, but it is still within the same state for zip and city. We do an MX record check on the email to make sure that that is valid. And then there's an internal check for a bad words list. So we have test on the bad words list, so that was a hard bounce, causing that lead to be held for manual review. And then finally, another reason for the bounce is a rejected combination of the first and last name. So we compare that against the U.S. Census prior to processing. So in those cases, leads are held for manual review. So if it's a false negative, you can come here and process the lead. And we see here that Wile E. Coyote is an available buyer, so we can check that off and match that lead to the buyer. And then we see here that there was now a red unmatched. And so that tells us something new, which was that there is a problem when we attempted delivery to the buyer. And so we see the reason is because we used that, did not get the success response from that lead buyer. But that is something that, should we have gotten it, it would have processed for that amount of money. And I can show us another processing here in a second. So each of your lead types will have their own tab on the left-hand side. So you can see here inbound calls have their own. And you can drill down to those sub statuses like matched, review, unmatched, so that you can find out exactly what happened. And the unmatched status is a good way to identify gaps in your demand. So if you're generating your own internal leads, for example, unmatched leads would identify opportunities for you to gain additional revenue by finding additional buyers. So that could be done either in a ping post environment through aggregators or additional direct service providers. So in that other page I was on, I just went and changed the delivery method so you can always reprocess the lead. And now we can get that list of available buyers again and let the system process the lead. And now in that case, we see that the lead was successfully processed and they disappeared from the unmatched status. But now we see here that it appears matched over here. So moving along, we have a filter list tab. Now, this is a very good tab for you to organize your buyers according to the filter sets that are set up. And so this allows you to see it at that 30,000 foot level, the matching priority, daily limits, lead prices, profit margins, and and then this is one of the reasons why the filter set naming is important, because it helps identify at a glance what those different lead filter sets contain. And so very similar to the leads page, this allows you to query the list so that you can ask yourself questions. So, who do I have that's buying leads from these sources? Or who do I have that's buying leads in a specific geographic location? Or that have certain requirements in their filter sets. And so this is a good way to get insight into your demand. That brings us to refunds. So assuming you don't have automatic approvals turned on and you are allowing refunds, those refund requests will come into this page right here. They're organized by buyer, and you can then research each refund and then approve or decline the lead, provide them with admin remarks. And then if you approve the lead, those funds are refunded to their boberdoo balance. If you decline that lead stays in their account and the funds stay debited. So we have a full suite of reports for each lead type that we build out. So they always are organized by the ones that you use most up at the top, but there are about 60 standard reports per lead type, and you can run those on a one-off basis right here. But second piece of unsolicited advice, we have a timed report section. This would allow you to build automated reports to be delivered via email or FTP on a periodic basis. So you can take any of the reports in your system, as I mentioned, email it or FTP on that periodic basis. And so it also contains magic strings. So you could do a leads received returned by partner report, use the magic strings so that you're only delivering the partner's portion of a given report to them on that basis, and you don't have to create a unique one for each one of your clients. This is something that we use internally. I get a report sent every Monday for the previous 7 days and then every month. And it's a good way because if you're like me, it's very hard to remember to come in and run reports manually. We have an email log. So this is a log that we pull from the SMTPs that you provide. When we set the account up, these are the emails that you are sending. So they could be ones that are going to the lead buyer, they could be ones that are going to the leads themselves, and they could be emails that are sent out as notifications to admin parties. And that brings us to tools and logs. So this is a self-serve platform, and we try to be as transparent as possible. So you have access to lead logs, but an important one that I want to point out is the lead rejects tab. So this will identify any leads that failed to make it into your leads tab, and then also spell out the reason why. So if you are setting up a new third-party lead seller, and they post in and say they get an error response or they don't get that matched response they're looking for, you can come here to find out what fields that they are missing or what that they have misconfigured so that you can advise them on adjustments to make. There is also the internal do not call list, and then finally that bad words list that I mentioned before, and you can manage those yourselves as well. So that is going to bring us back up into the settings tab. We have a couple more to identify. First, we have our APIs. So we did start here with the Ping Post API, but just wanted to point out that these are built into each one of your systems. So you could, for example, create a sign-up page on your marketing website, and then have anybody that signs up post in as a new partner. These can be used a variety of different ways, and is another good example of ways that we customize systems for our clients. So if you're looking to do something specific and we don't have it built in, we can build an API for that. And the last and third unsolicited advice that I cover here is the webhook notifications. So notification events, and you can see ones that are set up here, are events that commonly occur in your system. Now, they can be admin related ones. So account login blocked is a pretty common one, or filter set limit reached, or, for example, payment on the account failure. This is one I think we'd all want to know about as soon as it happens. But they can also be ones that are set up to go to partners, to internal admins like qualifiers, call qualifiers if you have a lead QC reject. And then also they could be set up to go to the leads themselves. So, for example, the new lead match notification. And then we have our method. So we can do SMS as an optional add-on, but you can also set up emails, FTP. You could post that details into another system. So, for example, on a refund request, we can build out a post to communicate with that lead seller so that you can request that refund automatically. If we go into the email, we can see you can then determine the groups that get this particular notification event, send it to the lead, and then you have your configuration of what is occurring in the email, of which you can include matching partners. And so, the magic strings on the right. And so those include the matching partners, which could then be pasted into the body of the email. So we would dynamically include whatever matching partners were in this email string. And then if you're selling leads across multiple verticals that are related, this is a good opportunity for cross. So you can use then like the lead information, pre-pop a string for your next lead type, and provide them with a banner ad or a clickable link to try and cross them into another vertical. And so that is everything that I wanted to get through with you guys initially. I know there were some Skypes or some chats going across here, so I'm just going to pull those up. But I'd like to open this up for any questions. So are there any questions from the attendees? Okay, so what I'll do, I didn't see any flailing off the chat here. So what I'm going to do is stop the recording, just so we have that done. And then I'll try and open this up out of presentation mode so that we can have more of a Q&A.